Hey, this is Jason Day, PGA Tour player, and you're watching the Who Are You podcast.
Welcome to the Who Are You podcast, a project that explores how to understand and live out your life's purpose. In this limited series, we will interview people whose unique experiences and insights will increase your self-awareness and help you live a more meaningful life. Each episode will address one of the following themes. 1, how to figure out what you want. 2, what to do when you figure it out. 3, how to deal with setbacks along the way. 4, how to excel and accelerate your career path. And 5, what to do when you've made it. Today's guest is Jason Day. Jason will help us figure out how to deal with setbacks along the way. I've known Jason for a long time and sometimes fail to appreciate I just think his story is amazing, honestly. Everyone knows Jason for his excellence on the golf course. That's pretty obvious, but his life was just filled with many twists and turns along the way to get here. And I don't think people really appreciate it. In addition to admiring how he's overcome so much adversity in his life, I think Jason has a unique and extremely valuable perspective on life, given the rooms he's walked into, the people he knows, the relationships he's had, the impact he's made. If I need to talk to someone who sees things from a higher perspective, I talk to Jason. I'll give him a call and ask him a question about business because I know he's seen things and talked to people. He just has an elevated perspective. I just can't see things from the way that he sees things, and it's really cool. Here's a little more information about him. Jason Day is a 13-time winner on the PGA Tour. That's one more win than me, I think. He's a major winner and an Olympian. Lately, Jason has garnered attention for his avant-garde fashion on the golf course, in addition to his stellar play. A native of Australia, Jason now lives in Columbus, Ohio, with his wife and 5 beautiful kids. You don't need a long bio when you're Jason Day. Welcome to the show, Jason.
Thank you, Clark. That was very well written.
Thank you.
I appreciate it very much.
I wrote that myself. Chat GPT did not write that. I just want to get that.
Really? Wow, that's interesting. Yeah, it could have fooled me, but
Thank
no,
you.
it's fun to be on, man. Like, I've known you for a long time now. It seems like for a very, very long time. So it's nice that we're on the show. You know, I'm excited to have a chat to you about a lot of things.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. I'm happy that you're here. Did you guys like my joke? Nobody laughed. I said I had 12 wins on the PGA Tour. Yeah. Nobody laughed. I thought that was really funny.
Hilarious.
I just didn't know what type of wins you were talking about. Was it golf wins? Because I've seen you golf before, and I just didn't know if that was like are you talking about wins in life or something? I don't know. But.
No, definitely fewer than 12 wins in life, too. I actually took a swing at your charity tournament last weekend. A group made me take a swing on the tee box. I think it was at 10 or 11.
Yeah, but you hit it right-handed, I heard, and you're left-handed.
No, I wish I was left-handed golfing. I'm definitely right-handed golfing. And
okay.
I hit it probably about 5
They tried
feet.
to give you that you hit it with other hand.
Man, I'm trying to help you here, dude. Like, you're most likely there's going to be a lot of listeners listening to this, man. It's going to start off,
No, I topped it really bad, and then I redeemed myself. The second shot, I hit it hard, but it went right into a sand trap. So, yeah, I definitely don't have 12 wins on the PGA Tour. Well, hey, man, seriously, can't thank you enough for being here. This is really awesome. If you wouldn't mind just starting kind of to warm things up, like tell us a little bit about your backstory, where you grew up, and all that kind of good stuff, and we can kind of get going from there.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, this is kind of.
I don't know if I can say neurological. I'm surprised I can pronounce that. So
those,
none.
Especially, competing at a high level. But then, obviously, a lot of people in general have a lot of setbacks. So, whether that's through personally or business, there's certain things that potentially happen. A door closes, a door opens, and you see opportunity in the smallest places and you take them. That's kind of how my life has come about. Obviously I started, I was a country kid back home, even though Ellie would say that I was a city boy. I grew up in the country. My parents were meat workers. My dad was a recovering alcoholic. He was finally on his third and last marriage. As it goes along, he had 2 previous marriages, and I have 3 half sisters, 1 half brother, and 2 full sisters. So it was a bit of a handful to deal with at times. My dad, and we grew up I grew up on the farm, like for the first I would say 4 or 5 years of my life. And, you know, it was just kind of just normal, easy life. We had a little small brick house, kind of out in the middle of Bow Desert, which is like kind of central east coast of Australia, kind of inland a little bit, 45 minutes, you know, kind of inland of Brisbane. And very simple life, but like, you know, we didn't have a lot of money. My mom's from the Philippines. So she's, you know, from, you know, a small village in the Philippines, but, you know, they met, you know, I've got, you know, obviously, like I said, 2 sisters and myself. So when we were growing up, you know, obviously we didn't have a lot of things. So my dad would, you know, we would go to the rubbish tip or landfill. And I've told this, I feel like I've told this story many times. But, you know, this is kind of funny because I'm sitting next to my trophy case right now. And, you know, every now and then we would find like toys or, you know, stuff we could use around the house, you know, just because people throw away stuff and like we repurpose things, you know. And then this is like a golf club that my dad found at the rubbish tip. So this is my first club that, you know, he found at the rubbish tip when I was 3 years old. He brought that back home to me. And thought, you know, because I always liked hitting things, you know, like every little boy does, you know, they just like to go out and hit and stuff. And I hit the ball, and like he turned to I hit a tennis ball, and I had a pretty natural swing, is what, you know, my mom and my dad would tell me. And he turned around and said to my mom, he goes, "This boy's going to be a champion one day." That was like the thing that he said to my mom, and my mom repeated that, you know, over and over again as the years had gone on. And then, you know, we moved to Rockhampton, you know, when I was like, you know, 7 or 8 years old. And that's when I really started falling in love with golf. I would, you know, go to school, run back home, jump on my bike, you know, pull my golf clubs behind my bike. And I actually got my neighbor into it, and he's a professional golfer now, but he's like more of a club pro. He teaches a lot. And we would ride down, play golf together, you know, every day. And then, you know, fast forward when I was 12 years old, my dad, you know, was diagnosed with cancer, stomach cancer, and he would have pains in his stomach. He went down to Brisbane, which is like an 8-hour drive. Scans came back. Scans looked fine. And then he still had stomach pain. Then, you know, had another scan done. And then they're like, "Hey, this is pretty significant cancer. It's spread pretty much throughout your body now. And you probably only got like 3 months to live," which is kind of like a bit of a shock, because you go from being like, "Yeah, I've got some stomach pains and all that stuff," to "I've got 3 months to live." And I don't have the greatest memory, like just right now, I don't have the greatest memory of anything really, to be honest. But I do have little snippets of him, you know, deteriorating over time, and watching him as a 12-year-old kid go from, you know, my dad, and granted, I didn't have the greatest relationship with him, but, you know, watching him, you know, pass away was pretty traumatic. But then, you know, like it was kind of weird because, you know, like I was talking about, you know, one door closing and another door opening, like he was very hard on me on the golf course, like to the point where I'd be playing golf, and if I didn't perform well on the golf course, he'd beat me out in the golf course in front of people, which is kind of the weirdest thing of all time, because you know that wouldn't fly today. But it taught me to concentrate, like at a young age, taught me to understand like that I needed to focus because I really love golf, and that's one thing that I really enjoyed. It forced me to make sure that I focus on the golf course more. And, you know, like I said, he passed away, and I started getting in trouble at school, started drinking at 12, started fighting at school. My sister ran away from home for like, she was 14 years old. So she ran away from home for 4 years, living on the street, and getting into all sorts of drugs, all that stuff. And then my other sister had some personal issues, like stuff that like I won't talk about because it's very personal. But so there was a lot of traumatic experiences going around at a young age, and then my mum decided to like take a loan out out on the house, just to try and find some money. She borrowed some money, and there was a school golf academy because she knew that I had some sort of talent. And at that time, I wasn't playing a lot of golf because I just kind of I want to play golf because my dad passed away. And she saw an opportunity for me to get away. And, she sent me, and it was pretty significant how much it would cost to, send your kid away to boarding school, especially my mum was only earning 35 grand a month. I mean, not a month, a year. So it wasn't a lot of money, back then. And boarding school was pretty expensive. So, talking about like certain opportunities, I went down to this golf academy called Coralbin, and I was, funny enough, that was like only probably 20 minutes from where I grew up on the farm, which is like funny enough, where I was living 8 hours away from this place, and then I'm going to a golf academy 20 minutes away in the middle of nowhere. So you did nothing but focus on golf. But yeah, I mean, I met Cole, who was my coach and caddy for a long time, and as an amateur and as a professional. And yeah, I mean, it was just kind of things went from there. First time I met him, I got in a fight, told him, I cussed him out a few times, and as a 12-year-old kid, that's pretty interesting to do as a 12-year-old kid. I probably wouldn't recommend it to my kids to do that. But after a while, I went and played, the par 3, that's what I wanted to do. And as I was there playing golf by myself, I really thought that, my mum had sacrificed a lot for me to be here. So I best, just respect my mum the best I can by, listening to the coach. And then that's kind of how, the first part of my life happened.
Well, I mean, I have so many thoughts, but that's like the craziest.
It was a lot. Yeah, there's a lot happening there. You know what I mean? I mean, I condensed that down in a pretty short period of time. So you just, whatever thoughts you think of, just ask, and I'm an open book.
I mean, the first thought I have is that I think it should be a movie, if I'm being honest.
I don't know about that, man, but I appreciate that.
No, I'm not trying to just flatter you or blow smoke. I think it's absolutely incredible. And what a story. I mean, you don't even need me to talk. You could just really honestly, share more about your story, but that is absolutely incredible to hear about where you came from. And then you've got the golf club. I mean, what a visual to kind of remind you and anchor you of who you are and where you came from. Do you have anything to say, sis? I don't want to talk too much so early on. Okay. But one, in addition to the kind of the movie comment, like, what did your upbringing or all those experiences from such an early age make you think about yourself? Because like, there's one thing I hear, and I've seen you're a great athlete just in general. Like, you taught me how to kick a soccer ball as an example. I was like, how did you
should have seen him before he was kicking a soccer ball.
I said, how do you get the ball up in the air like that? I don't understand it. So like, you're just a good athlete in general. So, your dad may have seen you play basketball at a young age or something, and maybe you could have gone down that path. I don't know. But what did that make you think about yourself? So you hear your mom and your dad say, this guy's a champion, but then you have all these other rough circumstances surrounding your life. I mean, that's just got to be pretty complex for a young kid to process all those things.
It was. I think it was definitely harder for my sister. That's why I think she ran away, because after my dad passed away, because they were really close. Like, my sister Kim and my dad were very, very close. I was like, my sister would always say, hey, you were the trophy kid. You're like the guy, you're the kid that dad would show off because you were good at golf. And I didn't really have the greatest relationship with my dad. And then my other sister, Yana, she had a terrible relationship with dad. Like, she doesn't like him at all, which is understandable. There was, so it, like I said, it was harder on my sister Kim when he passed away, and she lost a piece of herself, and that's why she kind of ran away. And there was no authority figure there, because my dad was he was old school type of guy. He was an older gentleman, obviously, because this was his third marriage.
Yeah.
And my granddad was in the First World War and like got shot through the ankles, you know, and tried to go back to the Second World War, and they didn't let him in. And that was the type of person that my granddad was. And then he put that on to my dad. So it was very old school mentality when it came to how you raise a kid. Like, we were belted all the time if you didn't, like, if you were being bad or you said something wrong. Like, so there was like a number of traumatic experiences that I went through as a kid, that I realized that if I didn't have golf in my life, and being mentally tough, I could definitely go down certain avenues where I could have an easy cop out to do certain things, just because, you know, I could have that victim mentality to a certain degree, you know what I mean? And that's what I didn't want to have. There was one experience where I told my sister to F off, and I was super young. Now, granted, I hate, like, this, to this day, I still will not eat them. But we had this massive mango tree in the backyard. Okay. And where I lived, it was just, you know, in Rockhampton, it was just, you know, they were there all the time. We had this massive mango tree. There were bats in there and everything like that. And it was rain, it was storming. And I remember my mum, you know, I swore at my sister, and my dad, she told my dad, because my sister was the first one to dob. We call it dobbers back home, or like to tattletale, or to tell on you.
Yep.
And my dad,
I watched Bluey. I know what that word means.
There you go. So my dad, I'm just talking about how hard my father was. But
yeah.
He told me, and I was under this mango tree. It was muddy under this mango tree. And it was storming. So it's raining. I was under this mango tree for like 3-4 hours, and I was just getting eaten alive by mosquitoes. Like, he told me that I had to sit underneath the mango tree, and my mum was trying to get me every so often. And my dad wouldn't let me. And I think he had some sort of issue mentally. Because he would just have a short fuse, he'd snap. So ever since that day, like, I'd get eaten alive by mosquitoes. I never liked mangoes. And then, like, there'd be another story where, you know, my dad, he'd be driving back from the meatworks where he worked, and my mum worked in the office, the main office. My mum would say something, he'd just get pissed off at her, open the door, stop the car, open the door, and this was like 30 minutes to 45 minutes away by car. He'd just stop it, tell her to get out, walk home, and he'd just drive home. So it was just like little things like that, where you're dealing with someone that is just so up and down emotionally. Yeah. That was very, very difficult. And I didn't quite see the opportunities that I had when I finally went to the golf academy and actually had some structure. I knew exactly what I was doing, where I was going. There was nothing where I could get in trouble, even though every now and then we did get ourselves in trouble. But it was just mainly golf. Yeah. And I think ultimately what that did was it gave me purpose. It gave me certain goals and certain ways to conduct myself in a certain manner. But yeah, I mean, there were a lot of traumatic experiences that I went through, but, you know, to me that was normal. Like, I didn't know, you know, what other people went through. I just thought, you know, that's just, you know, I just thought that was just normal, because we never, like, as a kid, you never talk to anyone else about, hey, have these conversations like adults and say, hey, you know, this is what I'm, you know, feeling, and, you know, what do you think of this? As a kid, you just never talk about it. And to this day, like, even like now, I hold in a lot of things just because of that, you know. So if there's anything going on, I just like hold it in, shove it deep down there. Don't put a lid on it. Don't talk about it until all of a sudden it just like all comes out at once. You know what I mean? So I'm a very, very normal person when it comes to that. Like, but yeah, it is interesting.
Yeah, I relate to that. Not to the, you know, not the exact details, obviously, but I'll go, why am I so mad? I have no idea. I just
Everyone has like everyone in their lives, they have certain experiences through their life that causes them to do or act a certain way.
Yeah.
And they don't understand why, you know what I mean? And until even to this day, like I've talked to people about my my past, trying to kind of deal with it. And like, I'm like, yeah, I mean, there is certain things that I need to deal with for sure. But, it also has helped me, these experiences, the traumatic experiences, the great experiences that I had with my family, it definitely has helped me. And I do see the good parts as well, not just the bad parts.
Well, and at least talking about it right now, you don't seem bitter.
Oh, dude, are you kidding me? No way. Like, I mean, not bitter at all. Like, I'm the luckiest person of all time. I got to, now granted, you have to work, my dad and my mum were workaholics. They left at, 5 o'clock in the morning. So my sister, Yana, who was 3 years older than me at a very young age. So I was, 7, she was 10. She would get us ready for school, get us breakfast and everything. And then my parents would leave at, 5 o'clock in the morning. I wouldn't get back till 6:30 at night. And then, so my sister was raising us. So she was the one that was, taking care of us for the most part. And we just had full reign to do whatever we wanted to if we pleased. But yeah, it's interesting to go back on all that stuff for sure. But
yeah. Oh my gosh. So quick point of clarification, is the golf academy the same thing as a boarding school, or were those two different things that you went to, Jay?
Yeah, so the first golf academy was a boarding school and a golf academy. And we went there for like a year, and then that closed down because I think something was going on behind the scenes with money and whatnot, and then they ended up closing down. And then we went to another boarding school, which was literally 20 minutes on the other side of Beaudesert. And that was in Jimboomba, and that was called Hills International. And that was a boarding school and a golf academy as well. So like so to give you context about Coralvin, Adam Scott went there, Andrew Buckle went there, Stephen Bowditch went there. You had Andrew McKenzie, you had myself, you had Luke, my caddy, he went there. You had I'm just trying to think, I'm missing names. Gavin Flint. These guys have either played on the PGA Tour or played on the Asian Tour, played on the European Tour. These guys are legit players. So that golf school that was in the middle of nowhere was really, really good golf school. And like I said, yeah, it was a boarding school mixed in with a golf academy, which was fantastic. And it was in the middle of nowhere. So yeah.
Interesting. Okay. This is just my attempt to try to like move the story forward, because for me, I'm kind of like arrested, honestly, on that whole thing that you just said. And I could probably keep asking questions until the cows come home, and I know that it's a gold mine, but we can keep moving the story forward too. So I know you're really good at this age. 10-year-old Jason can probably beat 41-year-old Clark handily. So tell us, if you would, it's so interesting. Again, you have this story where golf was, obviously you're great at it, a little bit of a source of, to say the least, frustration, angst, anxiety for you. Yeah. But it's also this thing that's propelling you forward, and people at some point must be telling you just what your dad said all those years ago. Somebody's probably starting to tell you at some point, like, hey, you're really good, man. Like, when does that start to happen? Is it Colin who tells you? Like, where's the pivot kind of happen in your story?
It's kind of weird. Like, I don't think it was more so people telling me like, hey, you're good. Because in Australia, it's not the way that we act towards people that are good. We don't really say, hey, we're not. Back when I was growing up, it's the way that Australians look at other athletes or people that are good. It's almost, we have this thing called tall poppy syndrome back home. And I'm not sure if you guys know about it, but it's like anyone that's like kind of the favorite, we kind of don't really like to root for. We always like to root for the underdog.
Sure.
So that's why like Australians are very different when it comes to like say Americans. Like I've seen so many players, young players, that are so super confident of themselves because they have so many people telling them how good they are, and they honestly believe it. But I look at it and I'm like, man, that guy's not as good as he thinks he is, just because there's people telling him how good he is. Like, and I think it's a double-edged sword there, because we have in Australia, we very rarely have people telling us how good we are. And over here in America, we have people telling them how good they are. So like, there's good and bad to both sides. You need something in the middle, I think, just to kind of, because if you're really great at something, you have to kind of sift through all the bull crap, you know, and all the struggles and what you're not good at to try and make those a little bit better and flourish. If someone's telling you how good you are constantly, you'll never see a weakness. You'll always think you're great at everything, and that just you won't be able to flourish and learn and understand that failure is part of like trying to find success. And you know, like going back to your question, I think it was more along the lines of just seeing the results. Like, and I look back on it now and go, hey, like I remember reading something like where you discover that you have a potential. And when you have a potential and you put some work into it, then you start to get results. And when you get results, it gives you confidence. And then that feeds back into the potential side. So it just kind of like it's a spiral that goes up. And I started like playing really, really well when I was like 15. I was the youngest ever at like junior golfer to win the Queensland Amateur, which is like open category for men as well. So I was 15 years old, and that was in 104 years that, you know, I was the youngest at the time. And I beat a guy that was like, you know, grew up 30 minutes away from me, and he was well in his 20s, and I was 15 years old at the time. And so certain little things like that, you'd play and you're like, hey, you know, I'm seeing results. And then all of a sudden, because every week we would play Wednesday at the Golf Academy, Wednesday afternoon, and we have a competition Saturday and competition Sunday. And if we didn't have a competition Saturday, Sunday, we were usually playing a tournament somewhere else on the weekends. So it was a full-time job from the get-go when I was 13. And, you know, I just started seeing more results. Like I'd play really well. I'd shoot 65, you know, on a Wednesday competition at my home course. And then I'd go play on Saturday, shoot 66. And then it just started fueling more and more and more. But like, it was kind of weird. Like, you know, Luke, my caddy, this is where things got interesting for me, because he somehow lent me a book about Tiger Woods. I don't know how it happened, but and granted, at that time, he was waking up at 4 o'clock every morning to go practice. And like to this day, I tell everyone that he was better than me, which he was. He was better than me for a small time, you know, because obviously the age difference, you know, going back from, you know, when we started out at 13, he was 14. And he lent me a book about Tiger. And I think I was about 14 years old. And then I didn't understand why I was shooting 72 at 14 years old and he was shooting 66s and 68s and all that stuff. And I'm like, I don't understand that. So what I essentially did, I said, okay, well, Luke's working hard. I think I need to work harder. What do I need to do? So I kind of came up with a plan of like, okay, well, and this is where, you know, how like I was talking about like doors that are, you know, opening and closing. This is where one door opened up because of that book. And I think the traumatic experiences that I went through and having to grow up really, really fast by going to a boarding school, because we had to like, you know, do our washing, and sometimes we'd cook ourselves, all that stuff, but mainly they'd cook for us and all that stuff. So you had to grow up really quick. But I kind of came up with a plan. I'm like, okay, well, what do I need to do? I need to save shots. How do I save shots? Well, short game is the first thing. So I started waking up at 4 o'clock and going and practicing before school, coming, having breakfast, going back to practice before school. So like there was like a good, you know, I'd get there, you know, wake up 4 o'clock, get there at 4:30, because we don't have daylight savings. So it gets really sunny there early. So you know, 4:30, 4:30, 5:30, 6:30, 7:30. So I'd have, you know, at least 3.5 hours of practice before school.
Oh my
even
God.
got into it. And then I'd just be short game. And then, you know, sooner or later, all that hard work started to kind of pay off. I started shooting lower scores. And then, like I said, it just kind of fed into the next thing, into the next thing, into the next thing. And then it wasn't until like 16 years old where I actually thought, I'm like, I could actually probably turn professional at this. Because up until that point, I never thought about turning professional at all. And then that's when I went on a massive run of like winning the Queensland Junior by like 5, winning, I think it was like it might have been 10. I think there was Victorian Junior, I won by 10. South Australian Junior, I won by 5. I won the, Queensland Amateur again. Like I won like the World Junior Championship. So like it was just like a number of things that just kind of happened like in a row. And I started winning more amateur tournaments at that young age. And then from there, it just kind of like I had people telling me like, hey, you're doing the right things. But I also had people going, man, you need to like work on this. But I think, and if you ever talk to Cole about this, who used to be my old coach at the Golf Academy, he would always say the one thing that stood out the most was I was eager to listen and do what was told at that age, because a lot of kids, as you know, at those ages, they don't really like to listen to older figures, especially when you're a little bit of a problem child. So that's kind of how it happened.
It's funny because at a time when in other cultures or countries where a young guy would have been getting compliments everywhere he went, you weren't. And it's so interesting because it's almost like at that point you've decided to turn it on and up your game and your effort more than a few notches.
Now, granted, speaking to that, and this is where I was saying it was a double-edged sword. I wish I had more people pumping me up back in the day, because I don't take compliments very well. If you talk to me, like any sort of support, any sort of like stuff like that, I'm like, oh, what is that? Get away from me. I don't want to hear it. You know what I mean? Like, and I think sometimes that hurts my game too, because I actually don't see myself as good as I would like to see myself as well.
Yeah. No, I was going to say the same thing. You do not take a compliment well. Yeah. I don't give them to you often because I know how uncomfortable it makes you. But in the rare cases I do, I can see you reject it. But I will say this is interesting because of all the people we've interviewed. These podcasts are going to be released out of order. We've talked to a few people already, but every person we've talked to where we've tried to offer some sort of a compliment, they've all tried to reject them. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
I don't know why is that?
Well, we've noticed some themes, and another theme is that their upbringings, they're thankful for them, but at the same time, they recognized that they wanted more out of life from a really early age. It's like every single one of them, but they to a fault are like, they're visibly uncomfortable when you try to say anything nice about them. Now you're probably a little bit more extreme, but still like you fit right in with that trend. Isn't that interesting?
That is interesting.
But yeah, for the record, I do think you're a pretty good golfer.
Thanks.
You're a pretty good guy. That's the extent of the compliments, because I know how uncomfortable it makes you. But it is really interesting because you're at that point where, okay, in America or whatever, like in today's world, I'm sure especially everyone would be pumping that young guy up, and you weren't getting a whole lot of that reinforcement. And then you just went the other way with it, though. You're like, I'm not good enough. Here's what I need to do. And then you work like a crazy man. But it did pay off. So you're winning. You get to the States pretty quickly thereafter, yeah?
Yeah, I started traveling to the United States when I was 16 years old, and then playing the World Junior Championships. I never played the US Juniors or the US Amateurs, which is kind of weird. I don't know why I didn't play. It just didn't fit because like the school and all that stuff, just taking too much time off. I think I literally went to I was reading through some of my report cards the other day. Actually, my sister sent them to me, and because they give you like obviously report cards, what you did overall, and they give you like notes at the bottom. So like pretty much every teacher was like saying, hey, I struggled in school, I'll tell you that much. Because I always wanted to be on the golf course. But saying that, every teacher would said literally if he applied himself, he'd be great. There's like spurts of like where he would focus, but his absence has hurt his grades. So I never really went to school for the most part. I took my books with me when I went to tournaments because I was always traveling. It was pretty much it wasn't a full-time gig for me at that time, but like it was close to being like hey, I'm traveling a lot kind of thing.
Oh, for sure. And that's one of as I'm sitting here listening to you talk, I actually wrote this to myself. You are smart. I was going to tell you that. Like,
thanks, man.
Affirmations. You are smart.
I just told you I wasn't going to make any more compliments. But It's interesting to hear, just reflecting this back to you is like, as you're talking through this, you've clearly thought somewhat deeply about these things. You have pretty cogent kind of theories about human nature and your story and how you've gotten to where you are. So it's interesting to hear you say all these things because as you're talking about your report cards, I'm like, I have to say this. Like, you're a smart dude. Like, you could have been a very good accountant. You could have been any of those things too. So it's just interesting because you're putting all these conceptual pieces together in a really clear narrative for us. And I don't even have to do anything, which is really great. I just listen.
Well, I'm not going to say that I'm smart, but like, I mean, I struggle with compliments. So I think the biggest thing is that because golf is a funny thing, a lot of businessmen and women play golf. We get to meet the most interesting people in the world. And you said something earlier about, calling me on certain business things. And like when I talk to you, I'm like, man, this guy's switched on, like when I talk to you about business. And there's a lot of things that you do fantastic that like, I have no idea how to do it. You know what I mean? But what golf has given me is it's given me the unique ability to be able to get into certain rooms, play golf with certain people, some of the most successful people, not only in golf, but in business. And I think because of my, where I'm at, being a professional golfer and being able to talk business with these people, I'm a non-threat to some of these people because I'm a golfer. I think they might be a little bit more reserved if it was in the same industry. If someone was talking, if two bankers were talking, it might be a little bit different because they have, maybe, they think, they have the edge over the next person.
Sure.
But my ability to be able to be a professional golfer and, be in these rooms and be thankful to be in these rooms, I'm able to ask questions to, a multitude of different types of people in different industries and get the answers pretty honest and open, because I'm just a dude that hits a golf ball really well, you know what I mean? So I'm like I said, I'm a non-threat. And I think that I would always ask, like, what's one piece of advice, that sticks out in your head that you would give to someone. And I remember talking to Dick Ferris, who used to be the United CEO. He was the part owner of the Pebble Beach, company that, owns Pebble Beach and the lodge and all that stuff as well. And I think at the time he was partnered with like Arnold Palmer and, Clint Eastwood and all that stuff. So pretty significant, successful human. And he, like one of these bits of advice that would stick out to me, that I can apply to myself would be that he would say, I asked him the question, he looked at me and he thought about it for a minute. And he goes, you don't know what you don't know. And I said, what does that mean? And he goes, I'm really good at a certain thing. And he goes, I'm not the best at, looking at, spreadsheets. I'm not the best at, looking at the finances. I'm not like, so what he meant was that he would go out and find the best people that he potentially could find, surround himself with, the best people to succeed. And that's what really stood out to me is that, like, hey, this guy, ultimately doesn't like, he's there to bring this company up and make it as successful as possible.
Oh.
And he's surrounding himself with the best people. So essentially that's kind of like when I did that, I took that and said, okay, well, who do I need? That's when I started working with a performance coach, started working with a trainer, started working with, you know, a bunch of other people, you know, and had certain things put in place. So when I was on the golf course, I didn't have to worry about anything else other than play golf. So that was, you know, looking back on it, you know, talking about, you know, being able to be in these rooms with these business guys, it's a complete opportunity that like is, you know, 1 in a million for me to be able to grab that opportunity. You know what I mean? I'm very thankful to have those interactions with these people.
For sure. Yeah, and you've probably absorbed a lot from people with that kind of a unique perspective. But, you know, by the same token, that's sometimes I'll ask you for your perspective on things because I think you have a unique, like I said, perspective as well. Do people come to you for advice often? Or
what type of advice are we looking at?
So it's funny you say that. So like, I would never talk to you about like golf. I think I asked you one question about my swing one time, and it was embarrassing to even ask you that. But
what did I say?
I said, hey, I don't know why this is, but I can hit my, it's so embarrassing. I said, I was trying to get started in golf and I was like, I can hit my 3-wood farther than my driver. Why? And you just looked at me and you were trying not to laugh. And you were like, I don't know, man. I would just have to see swing.
Well, it's hard because like when someone asks me like, hey, why does this happen? There's so many factors that can go into it. Like if I could see the swing, all that stuff, then that's when things get open up. But I was probably, to be honest, I was probably trying to be a smart ass to you.
It's just one of my favorite memories of you because it just encapsulated our relationship so well. But I guess I would say more like life or career advice. Like, do people come to you? And I think a lot of times it's so hard when, you know, with you being you, people want to come up to you and say, what was it like to hit that shot on 13 at Augusta or whatever? Yeah. That's a little dehumanizing for you and other, you know, prominent folks. But I mean, do people come to you about other things, like ask you about life advice, business advice, career advice?
Yeah, I think I wouldn't say it's business advice per se. I would say like it is business to a certain degree. Had a guy come in, a good friend of mine, and he's starting to go down this kind of YouTube route. He's a good player, and he's a professional golfer, but he's also playing on YouTube. But he was saying that he was having a problem with one of his editors, you know, the guy that edits all the videos and stuff, and saying that like he kind of messed, you know, this one video up. I've got 30 minutes of, you know, video that I can't use now because he messed up. And, you know, what should I do? I don't feel like I should pay him. I told him, I said, look, man, like it doesn't take much to do the right thing. And he looked at me like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, let's say for instance, like we'll play both sides. Let's say for instance, you say, screw it, I'm not going to pay you because you screwed me out on this, you know, this work that I did.
Yeah.
What he's going to do is he's going to have a bad taste. So anytime your name comes up, he's going to talk bad about it. And he's in that world. So potentially anytime he talks to someone, it's going to be a bad rep on your name. Plus he did do the work, but you weren't happy with it. I understand that. You're in a position where you can pay the guy and do the right thing. Now, look, if he understands he messed up and you pay him and you don't work with him again, then he can't say anything bad about you. You know, he can't go ahead and say, hey, he didn't pay me because of this and this. He knows that you're good, and you're just like, hey, and you got to let him know and say, these are the reasons why I'm not going to work with you anymore because, you know, so this stuff was kind of messed up. So what I'm saying is that like, it doesn't take much to do the right thing. And then I said, let's say for instance, you do pay him and you're done and dusted. Like he's never going to say anything bad about you. He can't because he knows he's in the wrong because he messed up the videos and all that stuff. but you paid him and you did the right thing. And then he came back to me and he goes, like a month later, he goes, hey man, like I know, because right now, like, I mean, the money that he's paying is significant in his life, but it's not significant to a certain degree. But like he came to me, he's like, hey, like I'm thankful that you told me to do that because I feel so much better about it.
Right.
Like you never know what situation the person's going through.
Right.
I know that like you're paying someone to do the job and do it right. And I'm not trying to defend this guy from doing poor work or anything like that. I'm just saying, like, I'm hoping it's more of a lesson for the guy, because he missed out on potential further business with this other guy my mate, because of the lack of work or I guess the correct work that should have been put into it. And I'm hoping that's more of a life lesson for the other dude, but it's also a life lesson for my buddy Ryan.
Yeah.
That it doesn't take much to do the right thing. And if you can go through life and do the right thing, you won't have any regrets. Do you know what I mean? Like you won't have, like there's so many stories where I hear of people doing the wrong thing in business and kind of screwing another person over. I'm like, man, like that would be just the worst to be able to. Maybe some people like doing that. I don't know. That's just not me. You know what I mean? Like I just feel like you try and, bring a certain, nature or way about yourself to the world and like leave it in a better place. But like I said, if you do the right things and say the right things and you work hard and you have a passion towards something, you can go a long way here.
Mm. That's great. Cecily, do you have a question for Jason?
Yeah. This kind of goes back to, and it kind of gets us not back on track, but back to what we were talking about. So you're going to all these tournaments, you're, growing up, getting probably towards the end of school. Was it always in your head that golf was going to be the career? Did you even know that that could be a career? Or did you have other, like, oh, this is just going to be a hobby, I'm just going to do this and then do something else?
There was no back. What'd you say, Clark?
Maybe Jason wanted to be a chef.
Oh, dude, I burn my eggs in the morning. There's no there was literally no backup plan. There was no backup plan. It was this or, head to the military or something. You know what I mean? Where I'm like, because I literally had no other skills. You know what I mean? So I didn't go to college. I didn't pay attention in school. So I was like, and I'm not saying that the military is like for dropouts or anything like that. I'm just like, that's another career that I would have liked to go down. I actually would have liked to if I didn't play golf, I would have loved to go to the military. I think that would have been fun. But I didn't have a backup plan. No, this was like, hey, this has to work. And sometimes that's okay, because I work very well when I'm pushed into a corner. Like if I need to do something on the golf course and I'm pushed into a corner, typically I focus and play better. So that's where I'm at with that.
You burnt the boats. You heard that expression, burn the boats?
No.
What is that?
It's like a metaphor. You're going into battle and you have all your guys with you. You have your boats. You arrive at the enemy shores and you burn your boats. You're not going back. You have no other backup plan. It's just like, that's the only plan I've got and I'm sticking with it.
Dude, 100%. I mean, that's the only plan I had. And there was nothing else that was in my plans other than that.
So it's so cool. What a story of redemption. It's awesome. You've done all these amazing things. And so I don't want to gloss over all the wonderful successes you've had. Obviously you've had those, and those are pretty well publicized. But when we think about other things in your life or career where you've had setbacks, I mean, one thing I think of often for you is you were physically ailing for such a long time. And I don't want to go into a ton of detail there, talk about what you're comfortable talking about.
Right.
But I mean, when your health became a source of concern for you,
yeah,
how did that impact you mentally, physically? I mean, where did that take you, Jay?
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard because there was a lot of dark moments in and around those times where I was injured. Do you know what I mean? I think now I had battled some back issues like as a kid as well, but like it didn't really hit me until I was, just after world number one. Yeah. So it was like kind of 2016, I started like 2015, 2016, I started getting like really sore. And I'm like, why am I getting sore? Like I'm the fittest I've ever been. I'm working out. I'm like, and I was crazy about my workouts, man. I was doing 2-a-days, like doing some cardio and workouts in the morning. And then all of a sudden I'm, doing like, weight training in the afternoon after my practice, putting in 10-hour days. And then my technique kind of got out of hand, which it like the technique and the way that the body, they intertwine with each other. So if your body's not, working right, your technique doesn't really work correctly. And then all of a sudden it just kind of got out of hand. And then I was more along the lines of starting to get burnt out. 2016, I was like number one, I just won the Players, and I like switched off. Like I didn't want to play golf anymore. I'm like, I'm happy. Like I just got burnt out from doing everything, like under the sun, like you name it. Like if I wanted to sit there and sign autographs, I could be there for an hour, 2 hours after my rounds every single day if I wanted to. Then you got like every day, you're talking to the media, then you got sponsor obligations and you got family obligations and you got to, deal with business on the side because, your business managers on the side like talking to you about business. Then you got to work, on top of that. So there was just a number of things that I just started getting burnt out with. And then I just slowly stopped doing a lot of things. And then a lot of that stuff caught up to me. So the technical issues, the body issues, and then I started getting really injured, and really injured badly, to the point where I used to do 2.5 hours of putting a day, every day, like just like straight through the whole way. And like doing 2.5 hours of putting every single day, like is really difficult to do, but I just smashed it out. And I did that for years. And then it got to a point where I couldn't even stand over the ball. I couldn't stand over putting for 15 minutes. Like it was just like so bad. I'd start crawling to the toilet. I'd struggle to go to the toilet. I couldn't move. Like I literally I'd have to have people help me up out of bed. It took me 15 minutes to get out of bed in the morning. So it was just like, it was to a point where it was bad. And I had small procedures done on my back and everything. But then like I started seeing a functional medicine doctor, started seeing a trainer, Kevin Duffy. He kind of helped me along the ways too. I don't work with him anymore, but like he helped me along the ways with like getting myself back, not only mentally right, seeing things, but like kind of seeing things from a different light. Like, and the training that we were doing was unique and different. But yeah, I mean, those setbacks were big because there was a time where I didn't feel like I was going to play golf ever again. I'd go to a tournament and I'd go, okay, I can't really do much practice Monday. I can't really do much practice Tuesday. I'm thankful that we can play 9 holes for Pro-Am Wednesday. Sometimes I'd pull out of the Pro-Ams because I couldn't play. And then Thursday, Friday, I'd be like, okay, let's get through Thursday and Friday. And if I make the cut, great. If I don't, then that's another tick for the contracts. Because what I mean by contracts is that like everyone's in their contracts when they get paid to play, whether it's Nike or whatever it is, you have a contract minimum that you have to appear in. So most guys have 20 event minimum. So you're just trying to tick off like an event. If you get through 2 days, then that you can tick it off. But if you pull out Thursday, that doesn't count as an event. So you're sitting there, and I had a pretty significant Nike contract. And then if you don't play in those 20 events, you're starting to pay money back to the company. So I'm just like, I got to freaking play, man. Like, I know that I'm injured, but I got to somehow play. And I started playing golf for the wrong reasons because of that reason, which was also disappointing in a way, because that's not the reason why I got into golf. You know, I got into golf because I loved it. And then soon thereafter, I just started to kind of spiral. I started losing a ton of confidence, started losing, my strengths on the golf course. I started losing that. So it was just like super frustrating. I hated being on the golf course because I was like not playing good and I couldn't work and get better. So it was just like, I wanted to play something that I absolutely loved, but I couldn't work at it and get better. And then, long story short, I started working with a guy from, he's actually, it's called Spiral Dynamics, but he's a Pilates teacher as well. His name's Ton, and he's from the Netherlands, and he lives in Phoenix, Arizona. And him and his unique story, him and his husband, they used to be in the production Cats way back in the day in Europe. So like he has that, like he was a gymnast and all that stuff. So it was like, he was like a lifesaver for my career, like to kind of work with him, to work with Chris. I started working with Chris. I ended up breaking off with Cole in I think it was the end of 2017. I started doing my own thing for like a couple of years.
Yeah.
And then finally I'm like, I have zero clue. Like I thought I knew a lot about golf, but like when it came to the intricacies of like the swing and the technicalities of the swing, I didn't like really understand it all. So I needed someone to kind of fill that void for me. And that was Chris. And then we kind of worked our way back, and we started with the body first. And it took me, a good 2-3 years before I'm like, oh, I don't really have any pain anymore. You know what I mean? And I still had pain. So I had to kind of work my way out of it. And then I had to mix that in with the technical stuff as well for the golf swing. So it was just kind of like back and forth. But like, yeah, there was definitely times where I felt like I wanted to quit for sure, because I just didn't want to. And granted, at that time, I could have like been done and dusted, like wiped my hands. I'm like, yeah, I've made enough money. You've earned it. You can retire. But I had a really good support system with Ellie and my team around me to say, hey, like, you can still offer more in your career. You can still like chase stuff. And I had that behind me too, which was nice.
And you said Chris, that was Chris Como, right?
Yeah, Chris Como, my coach.
Do you feel like during that time of the injury, it messed with your identity a lot? Were you like, you had this identity in golf and you're like, well, if I don't go back to it, do you feel like that?
I think it did, but then my mentality changed pretty quick, because at the time I was working with Kevin Duffy and Tom, so I had 2 trainers. And then I also started working with Chris, and then they came into golf, into my life, and taught me about that, because golf is a lifelong sport. It's not like football. It's not like basketball. It's very difficult to have long careers in those types of sports. Whereas in golf, you can play for your whole life, your whole career, if you want to, just because it's like not as much impact on your body. As long as you keep yourself healthy and mentally sharp, you can be out on tour for a long time. But my mentality changed because they brought in a different way of thinking. Like, it was like, hey man, like I remember Chris would say that, like, hey, we are here, we're going to work on your technique, but we got to start from this place, and you got to understand that this is going to take some time, and this is more of a journey now for you. This is like almost what you were saying, this is your identity now. Like, you have to work yourself out. It's like almost trying to solve a math equation. You know what I mean? Like, you're trying to understand, like, hey, like there's certain steps that need to happen for you to be able to go from point A to point B. And some of those steps might be like 10 steps back the other way. But to gain forward momentum, you need to take those steps back to understand that that's part of the journey. And that was a different perspective for me, and that's kind of the way that I look at it, even though sometimes in golf it's very difficult to look that way, because especially over here in America, everyone talks about stats. Everyone talks about like who the greatest and next best is. And in golf, it's like, hey, how good is this guy playing? And each week in and week out, we're talking about the best player in the world, or the guy that wins that week. So we want results quick, and everyone wants results quick. There's no like delayed. There's hardly any delayed gratification these days, because everything's so instantaneous. So it was just like kind of getting back to those types of roots of like, hey, you know, this is a journey. This is my identity. I'm working things out. I'm actually learning and I'm evolving as not only a person, as a player as well, but like just trying to better myself in general. And I think once you have that learning mentality, you start to open other parts of your brain, other parts of like your senses to the whole situation. And that's kind of, you know, how I've looked at it.
Yeah, that's so cool. When you were talking about that struggle, it made me think, well, this is like child's play to you. Obviously it was rough, but against the backdrop of all the other stuff you've been through, like you can do it. But I think a lesser man would have probably wanted to quit. And
you know, getting back to it, I think that's what's so great about like the situations that have happened in my life. My dad being really hard on me on the golf course, where I've had to focus. Golf is a very mentally taxing and really tough sport. So like there's certain things, and I've had like certain dark moments in my life where I'm like, I'm done. And that's personal, on a personal level, and then also on a professional level. So it's like you can take it how it is, but I can definitely see how some people can get into like addictive, you know, things like alcohol, drugs, you know, they can go down dark routes like suicide and all these other things. But like I was fortunate enough to go through, you know, these like setbacks as we're talking about, but kind of see it in a different light and know that like, hey, if people could just have a little bit more, you know, because there's a lot of people that struggle, but like I would say like the openness to learn and have the ability to be open to learning and go through that mental struggle. And I think a lot of people would be better off, you know, just to like kind of learn more about themselves, and how far they actually can push themselves, you know, because I think a lot of people quit too early on a lot of things. And I think you can definitely push yourself very, very far. You know, there's people that run ultra marathons, you know, 100 miles, you know, that's insane to me to think about someone running that far, because I can't even run a mile, you know what I mean? But like for someone to push themselves not only mentally and physically like that, it just goes to show that like as humans in a human race, we can push ourselves to the point of not only mental exhaustion, but like physical exhaustion. And you can even go further past that, you know?
Most people have no idea what they're capable of.
Yes, 100%.
Not even close. You just push yourself a little bit farther.
And it doesn't take much though, Clark. I mean, it's like today I didn't want to do putting. I've got the President's Cup coming up here shortly. And I'm like, you know what? I'm tired. Like I've worked every single day. I'm like, you know, I'll just take a break. I'll just have a little nap. You know what I mean? But like when I have thoughts like that, I'm just like, you know what? Just get up. Just go start it. Just start it. Like, I mean, it's like anything. Like if you don't want to like walk for exercise or go exercise, just start the exercise and just give yourself 5 minutes. You know what I mean? Typically, if you start the exercise or start the, you know, for me putting, like, and I only had like a little bit of time, but I was out there for an hour and 15 minutes. And like I said, I'll just do a little bit of putting, like 10 minutes worth. And then all of a sudden I'm an hour and 15 minutes in going. So they're like moments like that where you're like building, you know, it's character building stuff. You know what I mean? You don't even think about it. You just go and do it. And you go, okay, I'll just give myself 5-10 minutes. And then all of a sudden you're hour and 15 minutes in and you're like, oh, I'm glad I did it now. You know?
That's amazing. There are so many good lessons in there. And that applies whether you don't want to practice golf, or for me, I had to write an article this week. I was like, I don't even know what to start with. And then I was just like, same thing. I said, just start. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just do it. And then, so it's a great lesson across industries and any walk of life. And, as I'm sitting here hearing you talk, you have a lot of unique tools and stories and capabilities. I think and you're not thinking about life beyond anything other than golf, I'm sure, but you have a lot of interesting insights into things that people would be really interested to hear, not just on podcasts, but, speaking to corporate events or whatever. I don't know. It's just very cool to hear you talk about that. You synthesized so much interesting information and so many different concepts into a really easy to understand narrative for people. And it's very impressive to hear you just say all this so fluently. I just have a couple more questions. Do you have anything else, Cecily? Are you good? I just have a couple more questions, and this one's out there, but I think it's an interesting one for you. Do you think that a person's mission or purpose is always the same in their lives? Or do you think it can change from one phase of life to the next?
Yes. Sorry, go ahead. What were you going to say at the end?
Sorry. The reason I ask you is because for an athlete, we always think of athletics, or athletes in particular, as like there are phases to their careers. Yes. So I didn't know if that's, if that would factor into the way you thought about this question.
I think over time it's evolved. Like, I guess you would say that, definitely like priorities change for sure. I think for me, it's always been first and foremost golf and family. You know what I mean? And I remember asking Greg Norman, this is the funniest story in the world. Cause like when I was like young, I wanted to be a businessman. Like I just wanted to I don't know why I wanted to be a business. I don't really care to own a business. You know what I mean? But I just thought that was the coolest thing. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I just wanted to grow money and have money. I just cause I grew up with nothing, you know what I mean? Like a freaking, we, a little story, I told this story before, but when I was a kid, our water heater broke and we couldn't afford to fix it, straight away. So we're boiling water and that's our shower, you know what I mean? So it's just we had cold water. So we just mixed the hot water. And we had that for a while. So all I wanted to do was, earn money. And when I got onto tour, I remember asking Greg Norman, I said, hey, what did you do? Once again, this is peer-to-peer. So it was a little bit different. Yeah. But I asked him, I want to be a business guy. I want to, own businesses, all that stuff. I was just asking the normal questions. And he goes, you are a business. And I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, just play really good golf. He goes, all that stuff that you're talking about will follow. And that was probably the most open Greg Norman's ever been to me because our relationship's not the greatest. And it took me a while to understand that. I'm like, what the crap is he talking about? I'm like, wouldn't you want to have another, passive income somewhere else or whatever it is? But what I didn't realize is that if you play really good golf and you're successful, and typically that things follow with that, not only are you earning money on the golf course, then you're earning money outside the golf course because of sponsor deals. And then all of a sudden, then there's certain other deals that kind of fall on your lap too. There's, for me personally, the Melbourne deal, to own part of that company, that fell in my lap. For paying a golf, that owning part of that company fell in my lap, and then it took me a while that I understand. It just people aren't willing to give you part of their company if you don't have any success or any of the accolades or awards that you've won in the past.
Right.
They want to associate their image or brand with someone that's successful, that, either does the right thing or has success on the golf course, with someone that's gonna, lift their brand up. And for me, there's different, parts of my portfolio. Obviously, I'm looking at singles and doubles. I'm not trying to hit home runs anymore like I used to in on that portfolio side of things. And we're in different types of funds and all that stuff too. So there's just a lot of things going on behind the scenes as well as inside the golfing world with, you know, Mulvin and Painter, and then I've got partners as well as sponsorships, you know, that I have, you know, outside of the golf. So it's just like, yeah, like there are a lot of things kind of going along in my world. And what I'm saying is that, yes, at some point, you know, as you said, that athletes do, if you're playing in a sport like a football or a basketball, unless you're a LeBron James or a Tom Brady, it's really difficult to have like 20 plus careers. So most of these guys are in like careers that span from like 1 to 5 years, typically, you know, 1 to 4 years. And their career paths have to change pretty dramatically. And, you know, the way that they spend money has to change dramatically. So the environment has to change. So they have to adapt. And for me, my priorities have never really changed too much. It's always been focused on golf, focused on family, and then things should like kind of fit in between that. But at some point in my life, I feel like I'm going to slow down, and then my priorities change. Now, granted, I'm very blessed to have the life that I have. You know, I can retire and not have to work, but I know that I will want to work because I need purpose. I need something to drive towards, because if I'm just sitting there bored doing nothing, I feel like I'm going to start going backwards. So
That'd be bad for you. Yeah.
It would be very, very bad for me. Yes.
Yeah. You need to keep moving.
What was that feeling like? I mean, when the money started coming through, the deals, you know, sponsorships started coming through, someone who, you know, came from not having much. What was, I mean, I'm sure you were very young. So at a young age, what does that feel like? What do you know how to manage it? What, I guess, yeah. What was that feeling like?
I mean, I did one stupid purchase. I went out and bought a Cadillac Escalade truck. I put a front grille on it. I had 24-inch rims on it. Like, it got stolen. So that was the last of like that kind of purchase. But then, you know, it was nice because I was able to pay off my mum's mortgage on her house just to kind of thank her. And I've told the story many times before. Like, as soon as I paid off her mortgage, she went and bought the house across the street, put herself in debt again. You know, so it was it's kind of like things like that. You know what I mean? Like, but like I was able to thank my mum in that way. But like, now, granted, like when my mum passed away, I didn't take anything from my mum's side. You know, like other than like trophies and like sentimental things, like golf clubs. You know, I wanted it because my sisters sacrificed, you know, their careers of going to college and all that stuff for my mum to pay for their college so that I could go and play golf. So they were like, they ended up, you know, getting some stuff on the backside of it when my mum passed away. But yeah, you know, money started coming in and I just wanted to grow my wealth. And like, granted, like I said, you know, I remember saying to Cole, I said, once I get to $10 million, I'm set, I'm going to be done. You know what I mean? And I freaking blew past that, way past that a long time ago. But like, I soon learned that it was never really, I mean, it was about the money, but it shouldn't have been about the money, because if you're passionate and you love something that you actually truly love to do, that like, it doesn't matter so much. Like, you have to live and you have to earn a living. And I understand that. And there has to be some sort of comforts to it. But for me, I truly love playing golf, and I enjoy it so much that I want to get up and work every single day at it, because I want to, like I said before, it gives me purpose. It gives me drive. I think, you know, having idle hands is the worst thing a person could potentially have. And if you're busy, yes, there are stressful moments where you're like, oh, I'm burnt out. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. But like, hey, that's a really small time. That's gonna be like that. Just get through that week, and then the next week is probably most likely gonna open up. And then, yeah, I mean, I started getting money, and you know, I don't know if it really changed, because like I still have that, you know, it has changed over time. For the longest time, I used to hoard underwear and socks, because we didn't like. Granted, when I was a kid, we would have, for our whole school year, my dad would give us $20. So it's for me, my two sisters and mum, and we would go down to St. Vinny's, which is in Australia. It's like a Goodwill, and you could get all the clothes you want as much as you can stuff in a plastic bag. So like a, I guess a Kroger bag or a shopping bag. So we had a bag about this big, and we would stuff all our clothes for $5. You could stuff as much clothes into a plastic bag, and that was my clothes for the year. That's why I went through a stage of like hoarding a bunch of underpants and socks and stuff like that. And they had holes in them and all that stuff and this is when I had money. But I feel like I've got past that now, which is good. So no more underwear.
Old habits. Right. Old habits die hard. What do you want your legacy to be?
I never really thought about it, to be honest.
It's okay if you haven't, and you don't have to.
To be honest, I try and stay as present as possible. Even though it's hard, because like the moment that I start thinking about the past, I get depressed, and the moment I start thinking about the future, I get anxious and I get anxiety about it. So I try and stay as present as possible, and just take it day by day. But I'm just trying to work as hard as I possibly can, because I know that I've only got one shot at it. But my goal is to try and get back to number one in the world, because that's another goal of mine. But my legacy, I don't know. I haven't really thought about it too much. All I know is that I work extremely hard, and that's what I want to pass that along to my kids, knowing that hey, you really don't get anywhere in life without working your butt off, and you got to work smart. You can't just work your tail off. Everyone works hard. There's so many people out there in the world that work hard, but if you have a career or a job where you have a lot of potential, and you work hard the right way, that you can excel your career path pretty quickly.
Yeah, pretty interesting to hear all these wonderfully successful people be so open and talk about their insecurities, their fears, their anxieties. And that's been a big eye opener for me too, because I've talked to all these people thinking, they've got it all together. And it's helped me even a little bit too, to feel okay, well, if this person feels this way, it's a little validating for me to think, okay, it's okay that I don't have it all together. If he doesn't have it all together, I don't have to either.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are really good at problem solving, and then they're really good at compartmentalizing certain things in their career or their job. Sometimes they're they struggle to do something, but they we all struggle. Everyone struggles, but they're really good at problem solving and working their way out of a problem and keep pushing forward. The successful people are very motivated by pushing forward and trying to excel and succeeding. That's what I've understood over time.
Anything that you'd like to plug or promote?
Not really. The Who Are You podcast, I guess. Oh no, man. I'm good. Everything's good in my world. I'm just happy to be here. Cool. Thank you for giving me the opportunity.
This was really, really great and very, very enlightening for me. And I'm just so grateful for your time, man. This has been so awesome. When are we golfing next together, Jay?
You know what? Probably never. You still booking that tee time? I guess.
Yeah.
To anyone that's listening, I've never played golf with Clark, and there's a running joke that he always says he's booking a tee time. At what golf course is it?
My home course.
Glenmore. Yeah, your home course. Yeah, I don't know where it is, but it's that course. Yeah, I don't know. That would be the day if we ever play golf together.
Oh, I would not want that, if I'm being very honest with you. But I always joke. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to book us a tee time tomorrow. And Jason always goes, yeah, I'll see you there.
But I would say, book us a tee time. I'll see you up there. No problem. I just won't show. You'll be on the first tee. I won't show up.
He's not going to show either.
I wouldn't show either. Too embarrassing. Awesome, man. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
No worries at all. Thank you, guys. Appreciate the time.